Today we're doing a fresh oil and filter change for the BMW F30 320d. A lot of people will probably head down to the dealer for this, but honestly it's quite a straightforward job that you can do from the comfort of your own driveway. Not only does doing it yourself save you over £100 in labour, but also you can rest assured that the job is being done following the correct procedures and to the right standards. Before we jump into changing the oil, we need to make sure that we have all of the necessary equipment which will make the job smooth and easy. Make sure to have a set of tools available to do the job. The minimum you will require is a ratchet wrench, a 17mm socket and a 27mm socket. You will then need to buy the right oil. Click through the owner manual, which clearly shows the appropriate oil types. The other way to do this is to use online tools such as the one on Amazon, which will tell you with your vehicle registration number whether the oil is compatible. Also make sure to check online how much oil your car specifically takes, because it's very important not to overfill the engine. The next thing you will need is an oil filter. Once again, you can use online tools such as the one on Amazon to make sure that the oil filter is compatible with your car. You will then need a way to lift the car, as you need to get access to the underbody where you will unscrew the drain plug. This can either be done using a hydraulic jack and axle stands, or you can use ramps to drive the vehicle onto. Make sure to get an oil pan to drain the old oil and also a set of disposable gloves. A torque wrench is optional, but I would highly recommend getting one in order to ensure that you tighten the filter and drain plug to the manufacturer specification, as failure to do so may result in oil leaks. Assuming that you have no prior equipment, the grand total comes to £218, which includes everything you need to change your oil. I compared this with the QuickFit website, which quoted me £165 for an oil and filter change. However, after you've purchased all of the necessary equipment, every future oil change will be less than half price of taking the car to the garage. Once you have all the equipment ready, the very first thing to do is to start the car and let it run idle for about 10 minutes or so. This helps to warm up the oil and to mix any old debris in the oil pan, which will help when you're draining it out later. Once the car is up on the ramp, we need to open the bonnet in order to unscrew the oil filter housing. Once you're in the engine bay, you need to take off the cap covering the engine, because the oil filter is sitting just under on the right side here. You simply pull and it should just come off quite nicely. Once you remove the engine cover, you will see the oil filter housing sitting just under these two tubes. To help gain access to the oil filter, simply pop out these tubes from the holes. Pick up a ratchet wrench with a correctly sized socket. So in my case, I need a 27mm socket to unscrew the oil filter. So what we do then is simply attach the socket onto the oil filter and turn anti-clockwise until the filter is released. Remember, at this point we're not removing the oil filter, we are just going to unscrew and let it sit loosely in the compartment. Once we've unscrewed the oil filter, now we can proceed to go under the car and take out the drain plug. For this, you will need the oil drain pan and another ratchet wrench with the correctly sized socket. Once you're under the car, you will see a cover over here. You can see the outline of the cutout. This is where the drain plug for the oil sits. For the next part, you can either use a screwdriver or a small Allen key, like I've got here, or anything that can be sort of like a little wedge that you can just put under this cap and give it a nice pull. At this point, you want to get your oil pan and place it under the oil plug, because this is where you will start to unscrew the cap. So once you've opened the drain plug cover, you need to find the correct socket and use a good size ratchet wrench. So I've gone for the smaller ratchet wrench because it's quite fiddly under the car, and the socket that I'm using is the 17mm, which fits on perfectly onto the drain plug. Okay, so at this point I would really recommend getting some gloves, because this is where the oil is going to start coming out and it's going to get quite messy. While we wait for the oil to drain, we can replace the old copper washer on the oil drain plug. Open your oil filter pack, which should contain a rubber ring and the new copper washer. So all you need to do is take the drain plug with the old copper washer, give it a bit of a clean, take your new copper washer, take the old one off, put the new one on, and set it aside until we screw it back on. While we wait for the oil to finish draining, we can come back to the engine bay and replace the oil filter. Because we already loosened the oil filter earlier, all that's left to do is to unscrew it all the way and to take it out. So for this bit, make sure that you have just a dirty rag that you can use to cover your engine bay and to prevent oil spilling onto your components. As you can see, we've successfully taken out the old oil filter, so it's very oily, as you'd imagine. So all you need to do now is to give it a strong pull, and it should come loose from the oil filter housing. Once you've disposed of the old oil filter, carefully remove the old rubber ring from the oil filter housing. Once the old ring is off, take a new rubber ring and dip it slightly into the new oil, because you want to make sure that the ring is lubricated in order to provide an effective seal. So once the ring is lubricated, put it onto the oil filter housing, and then we'll proceed to install the new oil filter. Now take the new oil filter with the rubber ring on the oil filter housing, and then attach it with the end point pointing outwards, and ensure to press it until you hear a click. You can now insert the new oil filter into the same place where we took it out. So now screw on the oil filter until you can't do anything anymore by hand. Set your torque wrench onto the desired 25 Newton meters and attach the same socket that we used earlier. And now we simply turn the wrench until it doesn't turn anymore. And we heard the click. Now we need to go back under the car in order to replace the drain plug and remove the oil pan. Make sure to have your torque wrench with you, because we will need to use the same 25 Newton meters of torque for the drain plug underneath. Once you're satisfied that the oil underneath the car has completely finished draining and you've replaced the drain plug to make sure that the new oil doesn't start leaking, then we can proceed to pour the new oil into the engine. First of all, make sure that you identify the oil cap. It should be marked with BMW Castrol and have clear signs to indicate that this is where you need to pour the new oil. My car specifically requires 5.2 litres of oil, so we will need 2 bottles of oil, because they're 4 litres each. So I've got 2 bottles ready and we can start pouring it in. Now that we've poured the oil in, we can replace the oil cap. At this point, you can replace the engine cover and close the bonnet. Once you've taken the car down off the ramp and placed it on a level surface, start your engine and allow the car to idle to get up to temperature. Once the car has warmed up to 75 degrees, you can go into Vehicle Information, then into Vehicle Status, and you will see 2 icons for oil. You want to select Measure Engine Oil Level. With the car still running, press to start measurement. Allow the car to measure the oil level, and once it's complete, ensure that it's within the right range before you start driving. You can then reset the oil service by pressing down this button on your dashboard. Press and hold until the oil service icon comes up on your dashboard. Once the Reset Possible message comes up, let go of the button. And then once again, press and hold the button on the dashboard. Once the Perform Reset message comes up, again let go of the button and once again press and hold. Continue to hold the button while it says Reset in Progress. It should then say Reset Successful. And that's everything you need to know in order to independently change your oil and avoid costly bills from your local dealer. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to see more tutorials and future projects coming to the channel.